Rafi. It's nice to meet you. I heard the Durham Co-op Market closed in 2009 and reopened in 2015. Could you explain its roller coaster-like history?
If you're talking about the closing in 2009, you're probably speaking of the former Intergalactic Food Conspiracy, which was our predecessor. We are not related to them, if only through a lineage of donors who, once that co-op closed, decided that they wanted to take the lessons that they learned from that first co-op, instill them in a future co-op or specifically because community was still desiring a place to shop alternatively from the large traditional grocery stores that most people shop at. So they found another group of donors and slowly were able to build funds from 2009, and this co-op would have opened right around 2015 actually, and we've been running ever since.
Okay. How do you compare the co-op to a typical grocery store, like you said?
I would think comparing us to a typical grocery store means that we are the antithesis or the opposite of a typical grocery store. So we are smaller, local. We also have commitments to community. Most grocery stores do not have me, which is usually how I start this conversation. My position as the community outreach coordinator of the co-op is to engage community not only in how a co-op works, how a co-op runs, but also to figure out how our co-ops can plug in to the people that we need to stay open, our community, the people who shop here. So traditionally, co-ops are owned and purchased by the people who shop here, as well as like our co-op, which is a mixed ownership co-op. You can also be a worker and purchase a share of the business and also become an owner. So that means people who shop here, as well as people who work here, like myself, own part of the business if we so choose to buy in. And buying ownership allows us to have a wealth or a cache of money, or cachet, I should say, of money for us to support our missions and values, which is another way that separates us from traditional grocery stores. Most grocery stores just want to sell food.
Yeah.
We want to have a commitment to community, whether that be through giving money to community, supporting nutrition programs, helping people buy on the shelf by keeping prices low. We have a series of values that guide what we do as a store.
Well, you kind of answered my next question, like what is a co-op in the first place? Are there any other details you'd like to add to that, just to clarify?
Cooperative market follow a long history of workers and community members banding together to open up businesses that support community. Cooperatives is a form of business, so it can be applied to any model. So you could be a cooperative school, for example, in which I imagine in that system, teachers and students might actually own the school and thus have a say in how the school runs or what the school focuses on. So by cooperative businesses being created by their communities, we have a greater connection to what's happening in our city, and thus also can respond in creative ways. One, because we're smaller and because we don't have a chain or a literal board of representatives that might exist, somewhere outside. Whole Foods exists across the nation, but it operates out of a couple of offices in LA and New York. So here, our board members live here, our workers live here, and the owners live here. And thus, when there's things that happen, say specifically during pandemic, when a lot of people were looking for water bottles or food supplies or extra food to feed people, especially our students, we were able to focus or channel some of our efforts either through purchasing special food items or even donating food items that we could no longer sell and giving them to groups that were actually feeding people during pandemic. And that's something that we can make as a decision here in the store that a lot of places often have their hands tied because they have a system or have a set of protocols or rules that they have to follow. Oftentimes, usually when food is not sellable or when they're there to sell food, they can't do anything but sell food. But we have the ability to give back to our community and also provide them with space to either put on events or even collections. So we can do things that other places don't always have the ability to do because we have a commitment to community.
Okay, so it's very community oriented.
It's supposed to be.
Okay. Speaking of students, how do you, as outreach coordinator, interact with youth in our community with the co-op?
Pre-pandemic, it was mostly through things like tours and education. So I was doing a lot of tours for, I always say it was like a 7-10 split, like in bowling. Everyone knows that term, but it was honestly a lot of like kindergarten through third grade and a lot of senior through junior year of college and business people. Those were the three groups I worked with the most. So, I missed a lot of the tweens. Not a lot of the like young professionals, but a lot of the older professionals and the young children. And I would give tours. I would talk to them about the work that the co-op does, things and initiatives we've supported in the past, work that we're working on, changes that were happening to the co-op. For example, we now have a full animal butchery, which is very important, especially to the tradition of butchering. A lot of meat that's processed in traditional stores or in traditional markets, a farmer has to sell the animal for pieces, only the meat that will be harvested, which means the farmer loses out on all of the animal that doesn't get used, as well as a lot of animal doesn't get used, and also a lot of knowledge about butchering purposefully, butchering the animal so it's healthy, or the meat is healthy after it's butchered, because that is a part of the butchering process, has gone forgotten. And so now, ever since pandemic, we've added a whole meat butcher, and we've been able to go further into our initiatives and our support of one, workers' dignity, so supporting 2 professional butchers, and they're educating and training people in the art of butchery here at the co-op, as well as supporting programs like First Hand Foods, who supplies us with this meat and works with farmers who are either small farmers who can't sell to large scale operations, or because they're minority farmers, they often get looked over. And so First Hand Foods does a lot of work with those farmers to help also bring up their practices to more sustainable, more animal conscious means. And we use them to, to outfit our meat department, or our butcher counter. So by adding that part of the business, we now have a greater way of serving community, as well as our commitment to quality foods.
That's so interesting. Why is it advantageous for the consumer to buy co-op groceries in the first place?
I think we're starting to see more now the advantageous side effect, or the advantageous part about buying into a co-op, is the fact that supply chains are very weak right now. We're starting to see that due to political issues, or due to pandemic, or due to the way that we produce goods and food in the world, that when we depend on purchasing and pulling all of our food from overseas, that creates instabilities and insecurities in communities that aren't large. For example, Durham is a more populous city than a lot of other ones in the nation, but we're still very small, and there are already areas where people are going without, having chicken on the shelf, or having access to, basic needs like light bulbs or toilet paper. Things that are common goods have gone up in price or have disappeared off the shelves because we don't produce or make these things in our areas. So by purchasing shares within small co-ops like these, what we can do is start to funnel our money into businesses that are local, and supporting the access to goods and access to services that we would pull from other places, and making sure that there is a wealth of support here for those businesses, so that when we start to see instability or changes in supply lines, that we don't need to buy across seas, or that we don't need to buy, more than a couple of 20, 30, 40 miles out of our town radius, because we can start to support businesses that are here. And by supporting businesses that are here, we support local economies. We support jobs that are here. We support infrastructure that's here. The less money is leaving the city or leaving the state, because we are trying to purchase as much as we can locally, because that's one of our values. And by supporting that value, we further support our local economy. I think another conversation about why it's so important, or what is one of the advantages of purchasing and sharing a co-op, is also the fact that you are this is an incubator in a lot of ways. A lot of local businesses, a lot of places that wouldn't get their start in a Harris Teeter or a Food Line get their start at a co-op. And so now we can start to see a diversity, whether it's supporting women, POC, Black, queer owners, or queer product makers. We can also start to see additions to local companies. A lot of companies that started on our shelves now have the ability to be downtown, have businesses downtown, which revitalizes the downtown area, and which keeps cities alive. And these are small ways, but again, the more people that buy into the system, the more money and the more support we're pulling away from traditional buying chains. Our board of directors purchase a share in the business, and that's how they'll be able to come aboard, but we don't pay our board of directors. They are not setting up a system to create price gouging on the floor so they can have better shares and better margins at the end of the year. We're doing our best on the floor. When you see the prices that you see, they're reflecting us trying to get people in and making things affordable for them to shop here, still getting enough for us to pay back the people we're purchasing from, especially local, and especially like specialty products that are made by people. Often pop up in small communities, or in communities that are underserved. This co-op is a co-op that was created by under a community of people who wanted services and items they couldn't get, and they were underserved in that way. They wanted organic, they wanted local, they wanted fresh. But co-ops often appear in places where they're rural, or places where it's a minority community and there isn't another alternative. So they come together and they say, we're going to put our money up front to create in the long run a long-standing business that can grow with the community and age with the community by providing jobs, obviously providing the resources to shop at, and of course providing services that the co-op can be creative in doing. Some co-ops provide education, other co-ops can create loans. There's a lot of things that co-ops do creatively on the side besides selling products, and that other stuff is one of the ways that makes co-ops special and makes them different than traditional grocery stores.
How do you maintain affordable prices in comparison to a bigger healthy chain like Whole Foods?
One is being really, really good about buying and what we buy. So there's not going to be random things. Like, you're going to miss some of the things. There are things that people come in and we don't have. Toothpicks sometimes are not here. Batteries. Things that just don't make sense here because you could get them at other places and they come with an expensive margin. Another conversation is that we look over the books and we decide where we pull the money from. So sometimes a department that's doing well, we'll take the extra funds from that department to support other departments. Also and as well as by creating buying programs and cross-merchandising. So again, really focusing on being like, if you're here for local, or you're here, then you could also be here for vegan. Or if you're here for sustainable, then maybe you would like to try the sustainable meat. And trying to give people a way to shop their values. That's one of the programs I used to talk about when I first started here. We try to figure out what people are looking for and focus on that. And then also just being creative as well, creating relationships with the people that we work with. By buying local, by buying from smaller businesses, we can be more creative in the middle and work with each other to support each other in the long run, instead of buying, Folgers coffee and having a price point that we have to stick to have it on the shelf. We'll buy, Luna and Caballo Rojo, and I'm forgetting coffee names even though I stare at them all day. We'll buy from these groups that are local because they'll work with on price, and they'll work with us and give us an ability to be flexible with how we sell and being creative in how we sell their items.
So by doing this, does this maintain affordable prices and accessibility for the low-income individuals and families in Durham?
It has. We are proud to say that we have held off throughout the entirety of the pandemic and thus this point, and not raised our prices to meet a lot of the same prices, the price raising that has happened in a lot of conventional stores, and that was because of our commitment to affordability. Things like our specialty department, so beer, wine, and cheeses, those non-necessities, we have a higher markup on oftentimes because of the fact that we can sell those for more and get a better price on other items. And it's not, that's one way that we do it. It's not the only way that we do it. There's some examples of products having a slight issue with manufacturing, or and I'm talking about the packaging of labeling, and they're not being something that conventional stores can carry, and so we've brought them into our store, sold them despite the issue, gotten a better price for having them in our store because we're helping out the company who had an issue with manufacturing or an issue with labeling, and they get to make a little bit money for something that would have been a waste to them because they couldn't have sold it at a conventional store, and we make up our margins more easily because we're doing them a favor. And that's something that I can say, like, on an unofficial basis, can't give you much more detail than that, but by doing creative things like that, by looking past a barcode being off or misspelling on a label or something like that could not make it into a conventional store.
I see what you're saying.
That we can sell it here and people are understanding. They're like, oh, we understand because it's a co-op and it's still the same product on the inside, even if the label's slightly pink now. And that's a very simple way, but again, mostly it's balancing the prices in the store and looking at items that are not necessities and making sure that we're not raising cans of beans up to $2 because they're supposed to be $2 now when no one's buying cans of beans at $2, but being like, you know what can be $2? Cheese. You know what can be $2? Organic artichokes. You know what can, those are things that people should pay for more. One, because they're quality. One, because they're hard to come by. They're fresh. And also because we need to keep basic necessities cheaper because people need those.
Yeah. Does the market accommodate food access programs like SNAP?
Yes, we do. So one of the amazing programs that we've been running, and we were one of the pilot programs for NCG, which is the National Co-op Grocers Association, which is not a chain, but it is the co-ops who have been in this, bringing other co-ops into it and helping them by providing them with marketing, providing them with know-how, maybe even training. It's just, again, it's a cooperative. So they're like, we've been doing this. We want more co-ops, because the more co-ops that there are, the better collective buying power that we have, the better we have the ability to change this food system that we're all trying to change in some way. So they work with us by providing this sign that says everyone welcome, the imaging in the store, the color motif, that green, that all comes from NCG. And then we don't have to go to a third, fourth party marketing firm and being like, can you create us a completely entire new market? One of the programs that NCG was starting was a food for all program that was to support people who are on SNAP, EBT, or some type of government assistance. We were one of the co-ops who early on decided to take a program called Roundup, which is traditionally in other co-ops used to create funds through rounding up your change at the end of every purchase.
That makes sense.
In other co-ops, they vote to decide what that money goes to on a yearly or quarterly basis. We were the first program here to say that we have a lot of need in SNAP and EBT. And one of our values is to increase people's ability to shop affordably and also for quality foods. So instead of picking a kid's soccer team or an animal shelter to donate with our Roundup, which was started by NCG, directly funnels into our Food for All program, which was also started by NCG. And for us, they directly feed each other so that our Food for All is always supported. There's always money to add Food for All owners, and Food for All owners will always get a discount because of that Roundup. Now, at the time, I believe the Roundup discount was somewhere like 5%. People were letting us know that that was not enough for people on government support to shop at our store.
Okay.
So what we did was, as one way to support people on government assistance, but also to create an area of inclusivity, because we recognize that for a lot of people, co-ops seem like a private institution. They seem it has to be like an owner's club. You can't shop here unless you're a part of it. And that in the South is also problematic for a lot of reasons, as you might know.
Yes.
So we removed all of the barriers for people to shop here if they weren't an owner. So anyone can shop here, you don't have to be an owner. And we also took away owner discounts and provided them to the Food for All, and used the money from the Roundup to create a larger discount with that.
Wow.
And we did all of that programming using systems NCG had already set up, but doing it specifically here. And a lot of co-ops have followed suit. Now, we used to be the only one with a 20% discount for Food for All guests. Now, a lot of co-ops offer that because they recognize that that is a good value and a place where people should start. And so that is one of the reasons why our owners don't have a discount, is because we recognize if you're shopping here, you're shopping here because you want to support local, you want to eat better, you want to get foods and items that you don't see on other shelves. So you really shouldn't need a discount to shop here because you own it. And if you own it, you want your business to thrive, and supporting Food for All customers, getting people who can't shop here regularly, or not turning people away to shop here, which is a big issue with business, then they need that discount. And so that's why how we do that.
Okay. From your hiring practices to the products you outsource, the business places a large emphasis on inclusion. What specific methods foster a welcoming, diverse environment here? So
one, making sure everyone can shop here, making sure that we remove the discount for owners and apply it to specifically Food for All owners because they needed the discount. So we talked a lot about the value of prices in the store. When we get good deals, because again, we buy for example, we have a whole case stack of beer from the holidays. That's still good beer, has nothing to do with the holidays except for the packaging. So we just bought a whole bunch of it at a very low price, and we kept that low price for people to come and buy it at a very low price. And so we often when we get a good deal, we apply that to the price on the sticker. And a lot of the specialty goods or goods that are expensive in other stores are cheaper here because a lot of people will get a good price or get a good sale for buying a large quantity, and then they'll keep that value for themselves and keep the price the same. We get a good sale, we drop the price on the item so we can move more product and also get more people to buy in store, because you're like, hey, I'm gonna go buy this $5, soda that's usually $10 at Whole Foods, and while I'm there getting my $5 soda that's usually $10 at Whole Foods, I'm also going to get, the chips to go along with it that may be made local, or I need to pick up some milk. So one, by making sure that people know that we offer discounts based upon need space, by also advertising and making sure that we're competing with prices on basic necessities, and arranging the shelves to go from basic items at a low price all the way up to expensive items at a high price, which is called story modeling on our shelves, people know that they can find things that they're looking for at the price that they expect them to be, including in purchasing fruits, vegetables, and products from cultures that are often overlooked. When the co-op first started, we actually were, all of the meat that we sold on the hot bar and in our system was entirely halal. But because we have a halal market on the same corner as ours, that is family owned, we did not advertise that our meat was halal because we did not want to pull customers away from them, because that's not working within community.
That's so nice.
So people could shop here. They would come from the mosque, they would come and eat a couple of them, and then they would buy other products from the store that they would need. And that was one of our ways of also just, reflecting people in hiring. A lot of co-ops traditionally only hire from owners or people who buy into the system, and oftentimes because of that, you are expunging yourself from community members. When this co-op opened, one of the tenets that the former co-op that had closed was missing was the fact that people who lived in the community were not working and shopping in the co-op. So when this opened, we had a commitment to hire from community and hire within the people who live and work here. This is a mixed income neighborhood, so the people in the co-op should reflect that, and they do for the most part. We have, I think it's predominantly ran by women. We have predominantly POC management and staff. We have Spanish speakers as well as some non-English speakers who speak other languages, excuse me. We even have families in the co-op. I think we have 2 or 3 sets of children working alongside mothers and parents. Different shifts, obviously, but yeah. So all of those to support inclusivity, and also again through donations and participating in community by showing up for community groups and showing up for causes like Black Lives Matter or LGBTQ events, and letting people know that we respect pronouns and we believe in systems of equality and equity, having equity training. I could go on and on, but these are ways that we want to make sure that people understand that the co-op is for everybody. Everyone welcome, like the sign says.
Yeah. So, are you ready to give us a tour?
Let's go.
Show us some of your favorite products.
Please. This is my first tour in like a year and a half.